Welcome back, everybody, to the SYBK Hockey Show. I'm Joe Sutton, the commissioner of the league, here to preview the spring 2016 season. First, I'd like to give a shout out to our fall 2015 champions, the Hartford Whalers. Captain Abraham Haber, he did an amazing job with that team. A shout out to playoff MVP and season MVP Aaron Harari for an amazing playoffs and his amazing game-winning goal in overtime of Game 2. If you haven't seen the highlights, click the link below to view that video. And a shout out to Elbaz for the Elbaz curse finally being over. But today I'm here to preview the spring 2016 season as we get started right away. Really only a 2-week layoff for the New Year's and the Christmas break, and we're back into it. So that's very exciting. Also, spring 2016, we're very excited as we are having an extended season this season. It's going to be a 12-week regular season, and then with playoffs and the championships to follow. The entire schedule is on our website. Please make sure to check out the entire schedule for those who are planning trips towards the end of the season or guys who go away. The schedule is set as is, so we hope that there should not be any issues. That being said, I wanted to just let you know how we created this year's teams, and I'm going to give you a rundown of my thoughts of each team. We had the 4 captains, same 4 captains as we had in the fall, as pretty much we thought that these were 4 guys that play the same position that are practically on the same skill level. What they did is we locked the 4 of them in a room, and they created 4 teams that none of them were on. They created teams, and as they were going, they thought, what would be the fairest 4 teams, and we would randomly select which team each captain was on. So they had to make sure that the 4 teams were really pretty fair. But it was actually, the draft took a funny twist. As we were making the teams, I asked each captain, okay guys, to make sure that the teams are fair, let's find out which team would you want to play on. So assuming that if 2 or 3 of the captains said the same team, then I would say, okay, that team is a little bit heavy, a little bit better than the rest, because obviously most of you want to play on that team. So I, asked that question, and each captain selected a different team without knowing what the other captains picked. So I asked each one, which team would you want to play on? They told me I want to play on team 1. This guy told me team 2. This guy told me team 3. This guy told me team 4 without knowing what the other captains picked. So that being said, the teams couldn't be any more fair with each guy picking a different team that he wanted to play with. That being said, once we got to that point, we said, if the 4 of you selected a different team, there's no reason for us to randomly select which team you're going to be on. The 4 of you chose your team, and that's going to be the team that you're the captain of. So we thought that was really pretty fair how the teams were made. And if anybody has any issues with how the teams were made, speak to your captain, because he's the one who made the teams. I'm going to give you a quick recap on each team and let you know my thoughts. So first we're going to start off with Team Staten Island, captained by Abraham Haber. Can Abe Haber repeat as a champion captain? We're soon to find out. I think the only one who have done that is Philip Dweck in the first 2 seasons. But the challenge is upon you, Abe. Abe's got Morris, Bailey, and Nat, which is always a good thing to have Bailey on your side. But with Morris coming back from an injury, we all know he missed the majority of last season, played for the playoffs, but how will he respond? His offense is pretty deep. He's got J-Ho, Gariani, Louis Haber, Morris Bijou, and Louis Chamois as his main factors. But can J-Ho and EG really carry the load for this team and put up big numbers in the scoring department? We will soon find out. I think those are the 2 guys on that team that are really going to be challenged the most and will determine the success of Staten Island. As for Brooklyn, I think this team is a good team. They have captained by Richie Bailey, have one of the top defensemen in Richie, one of the top offensemen in Aaron, and have one of the top goalies in Stevie Beta. So it really puts them up there. But there's a lot of questions on this team with two new rookies coming in from the JHL, Thomas Ridge and Mark Kern. How do those guys fare in our league? And speed might be a factor on this team as they're a little bit slow and lack of depth. But will Aaron Cabasso come back to Aaron Cabasso form and be able to carry a team to the promised land? We will soon find out. The next team is the Bronx, captained by Philip Dweck. I think this team is by far the deepest team and might be the heavy favorite coming out of the gate. But again, it's a 12-week season, so really anything can happen with a late trade deadline. Really, the first couple of weeks might not mean anything, as we saw last season when Quebec got off to a really slow start and was able to advance to the finals. But this team, I think, is the deepest, with Phil, David, and Brian playing defense. And they have really two of the young guns, extreme offensive talent in Mo Mala and Jeffrey Towell. Ken Elbaz repeat, and I think they have a very deep second line with Elliott Sutton, Mac Haddad, and Joe Beta. So I think this team is really the deepest and might make the most noise. That's what I think. But again, what I thought was obviously really wrong last year, as I thought KC was one of the weakest teams and they finished off second. So what I say might not be so true. The next team I think is Queens. Out of the four, I think this is the weakest team, only because they're not so sure what's going to happen at goalie. They are splitting the time between Boppo and Chicken. DJ was very excited about choosing this team, as he was very excited to play defense alongside Evan Bailey and Joey Cohen. They have depth at scoring, but the question is can these guys click? We know Ronnie and Jober can work together, but can Jackie Haber, Jeremy Rommel be able to work together? And then there's a couple of young guys of Elliott Haddad and Sam Liniato, who proved themselves last season, but can these guys, as a second line, be able to produce some numbers in order to get this team some wins? We welcome back to the league Alex Misry, who's been out for a while, and let's see if he can add to the scoring for this team. So my thoughts, I think the Bronx is probably going to finish off in number one. I would go with Staten or Brooklyn as the 2-3, and Queens might be the number 4 seed, but I do think it's going to be very tight as it was last season. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points separating the number 4 seed and the number 1 seed. Also, with it being a long season, anything can happen. So that's my thoughts on that. If you haven't checked out the championship highlights of Game 2, please click on the link below, courtesy of Stevie Beta. Thanks for that. There's pictures of the Whalers with their cup celebration, so that was pretty cool that we have on the website. Please don't forget that Week 1 is Sunday, January 10th, which is this week. Week 2 is the 17th, and then we were off 3 weeks until February 14th. I will make sure to remind you all of that. But again, Week 1, this Sunday, January 10th. Game 1 is at 9. Game 2 at 10:30. Please be sure to be there and be on time. We will see you all on the ice on Sunday.